So the Holger-26 got a buff. It says they increased the damage range and increased the ADS speed. I did talk about that change in the overall update when I went through each of the various changes. So we're going to go ahead and visit that again, as well as talk about the various recoil patterns of the various attachments, look at the individual attachments and why this weapon doesn't put itself within the meta where a lot of people feel it should be. At least there's a lot of people out there that are pro Holger, team Holger, whatever you want to call it. And they're always in the comment section saying people are sleeping on the Holger. And I explain why most people aren't actually sleeping on the Holger, but we're going to talk about the various attachments because at the end of the day, if you're going for the camo grind or you want to try this weapon out. So obviously this is a continuation of the series of how to make the best weapon possible. And for today's video, we're just going to focus on the Holger. And the overall goal is for you to be able to figure out what attachments you want to use for yourself so you can make the class setup that better fits your needs, regardless if that's multiplayer or Warzone, solos, duos, trios, or quads, or even hardcore if you want to go ahead and play some hardcore. If you do enjoy the video or learn something new, please do me a favor, hit that like button. Goal in today's video is 2,500 likes, which you guys have been crushing, by the way. And if you're brand new looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, definitely make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Also, a quick reminder, my Gfuel code is 30% off all the way up until August 14th. So if you're looking to just try it out for the first time, they have a bunch of sample bundles. So if you're just trying to find out what flavor works best for you, or if you're just looking to restock, there's plenty of different options on the site, which is linked down in the description, or you could just use code JGOD at checkout. So right here, we can see the overall changes to the Holger. You can see the damage was pretty much kept the same for headshots and then pretty much everywhere else because it uses 5.56 ammo. It works like a lot of the other 5.56 ammo weapons. As far as the damage, it got a 3-meter increase to its first damage drop off, and then its furthest damage drop off went from right around 65 up to 70. It's like an 8% increase, which I think if you really wanted to make this weapon dominant, this first damage drop off should have been all the way up to 60, and this other one should have been to 80, because this weapon ends up having a huge issue, and that is that it doesn't have a barrel that increases bullet velocity or range, so you're kind of just left with the monolithic suppressor as your only way to actually accomplish that. On top of that, you had an ADS buff, which in my opinion is the bigger deal. It ends up shaving off 46 milliseconds, which is about 10% faster than it was previously. And it kind of takes it out of that LMG bracket. And so you can start attaching different weapons and you're not forced to use a 30-round mag, which a lot of people tend to lean towards. It's just not practical for Warzone. Multiplayer, hardcore, perfectly fine to run a 30-round mag. You can get away with it. Reload speed's fast enough. But in Warzone, 30 rounds is just not enough. So with that being said, we can look at all the various attachments. I think we're going to look at the recoil pattern. So you're going to see how effective the muzzle brake is or the compensator. But overall, this weapon, because of that buff, you might as well go with the monolithic suppressor because it's going to help the bullet velocity and range and sound suppression. You typically need that. If you're really struggling with the ADS speed, you could always go with the tactical suppressor, but it is going to be a little bit harder to hit targets. Once you get beyond that 60, 70 meters, especially if they're falling out of the sky, you're going to have to lead them significantly. They could swerve. It's not going to feel close to hit reg at all. So overall, you could go with the tactical if you wanted the faster ADS, but the mono is probably the way to go. And then the barrel, maybe this would be useful in multiplayer, but definitely not in Warzone. You don't need to slow down the bullet velocity, and we'll see when we get to recoil, this ends up being pretty bad for the gun. So I wouldn't use either of those. And when it comes to the underbarrel, these ones are usually pretty straightforward. It's kind of like you go with the Merc if you want a little bit faster mobility, tighter hip fire, with a little bit of recoil control. And then we got the Commando, which helps to the side to side, a little bit bouncing, so stabilizes the gun. Ammunition, like I said, you could go the 30-round mag. It'd be nice if they had a 60-round mag option, which gave you a lot of these benefits, but not like quite as good. So it's kind of a balance in between where it sits at a 100-round mag. And I think more people would probably use it. Just because it's a 60-round mag. 30 rounds, just not enough in Warzone. Rear grip. We're going to take a look at all these. We're going to see that the rubberized isn't doing a ton. Stipple grip is probably going to be a way to go because of how strong it is on this weapon. You're going to save the extra attachment here. Equip the tac laser so you get the fastest ADS possible. Equip a VLK because that will help with stabilization a little bit, but also is going to allow you to hit the target at range. The damage just isn't good enough for close range, and it's not good enough for long range. It's kind of has one little damage of 5 meters where it's really good, but besides that, you really don't have a good strength to this weapon. At the end of the day, if you're killing somebody, it's because you're just better than them, or they're using a terrible weapon worse than the Holger. And then the stock, we got the standard stocks. Normally, the only ones that you'll probably go with is the XRK axis over the stippled, or you can go with no stock if you want the mobility. But again, where you're going to be needing to hit shots, you're probably not going to use that unless you're playing multiplayer. So here we have some pretty straightforward recoil patterns. The Holger goes a little bit up and to the right, and this is all done with 30 bullets. And you can see that the muzzle brake actually does something a little bit weird here. It kind of curves that, so I'd probably almost never use the muzzle brake because it gives you this weird bend that normally you would be trying to get rid of. And if you compare these two, it almost looks like this is the after of using the muzzle brake. So definitely avoid the muzzle brake. You can see the compensators helping as it normally does, but as with Warzone goes, you're going to want some kind of suppressor, primarily for the end zone. It's good during the middle of the game, but the end zone, when there's only 2 or 3 teams left and you're taking one out and somebody's trying to third party, you're at a significant disadvantage if you're not running a suppressor and they know exactly where you are. So a lot of times these don't get used within Warzone for that reason, but obviously in multiplayer, if you feel like you want to use a compensator over a suppressor just to be as laser accurate as possible, definitely go with the compensator. We have the Spitfire, which is the one that gives you the faster ADS, but at a penalty to recoil, and you can see that is stretching up here. Obviously the orange is the original, so it's actually increasing the recoil there. We got the Commando foregrip, which really isn't looking like it's doing much at all. Almost nothing. They basically look the same. So I'd avoid the Commando. The Merc, it looks like it's helping a little bit. Ranger, about the same. And then we have the Operator, which overall looks slightly better than the Merc, but overall, all 3 of those are about the same. So generally, most people end up going with the Merc just because it has the other properties of the hipfire as well as the movement speed bonus that you get from running the Merc. Rubberized doesn't look like it's doing much, so it's almost a waste of attachment, even though it does look like it is decreasing it just like by 2 or 3 bullets. I don't really think it'd be worth an attachment. And then we got the no stock attachment, which you can see is increasing the recoil. So it probably wouldn't be the smartest idea to combine no stock with the Spitfire. You'd probably get lightning quick ADS speed, but your shots would be kicking quite a bit. And then we got the best class setup, which you can see how close these bullets are at touching. There's a little bit of curve because there is idle sway with weapons that causes a little bit of inconsistencies in some of these recoil blots. But overall, you can see that this is very tight compared to what we've seen throughout this. So right here, I've gotten this data from codgundata.com, which is a site where you can kind of build your own class setups and compare the weapons head to head. And you're going to see that the Holger doesn't do very well when compared against the Bruin and the Kilo. Maybe if I went towards the bottom tier of the weapons, but overall, these are the main 2 weapons being used currently within Warzone. Meta is obviously going to be shifting a little bit with the Bruin nerf, the Foul nerf, and stuff like that. So people are going to end up probably leaning towards the Kilo a little bit more. But overall, this gives you kind of a picture of what it looks like. You can see the time to kill in seconds on the left, and then on the bottom, we have the distance in meters. As you can see that the Holger does not perform up close very well at all. Normally, if we included some SMGs, they'd be even lower than this number because generally they're going to perform better than the Bruin and the Kilo. So up close, not a good option. You can see the Kilo performs all the way up to about 48 meters here, and then has a damage drop off. And then for this little hair sliver of 48-ish meters where that new damage drop off is, all the way up to about that, 46 to 48 meters, 52 meters, somewhere in there, you can see that there is a damage drop off and it never recovers. It never even becomes competitive, semi-decent competitive. Obviously, these numbers are kind of close here, but the thing to realize is that if you're going head-to-head with someone who is similar skilled, which skill-based matchmaking tends to do, so if you're going head-to-head and you fire at the same time they do, you're going to lose the gunfight. The only way to beat somebody using the Holger, it just means you're a better player, or you had better positioning or better whatever, but keep it in mind, this is putting you at a disadvantage when you go into a gunfight. Because there's only a 2 or 3 meter in here where it actually becomes valuable to ever use this gun. And that'd be bad enough as it is, but let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like when you factor in bullet velocity, since it can actually increase that with one of its barrel attachments. So now when we start looking at these head-to-head and those bullet registration delay, because the bullet actually has to travel when we're dealing with regular bullet physics, you can see that this gun, by the time it's about to get there, it ends up getting beat out. It still has that same couple meters, but the distance is a lot closer than you'd expect. It ends up being even with the Bruin up to that point, and it never recovers. Again, not even close. It ends up being significantly worse than the Bruin, significantly worse than the Kilo, especially once you get above that 80, 85-ish meter range, where that kilo typically has the damage drop off, and beyond that, new damage drop off that the Bruin has, where it used to be a little bit further ahead. And you can see this is the issue. They'd have to solve for this. So the only ways to do that is increase the fire rate, which they're probably not going to do. Increase the damage, which they could do, but it's 5.56 ammo, so it has to deal the exact same damage as the kilo. So the only other thing they could do is add a barrel with better bullet velocity that will increase these ranges, because if this was increased up to about 70 meters, 75 meters, it would be better than the kilo up until that range, between 45-ish, 48 meters, all the way up to that point. And then the next damage drop off, this would be pushed out, and it'd be fairly even with the kilo. Once the kilo drops off, it might even be a hair better, depending on how they balance that with bullet velocity. So it's just something to keep in mind. I don't think it's likely that they're going to add an attachment, but I never thought they'd add attachments for the Uzi or the Grau or all the several other weapons that they've added attachments for. So the Holger's not all trash. Obviously, I know I'm trash talking it a little bit, but one of the parts where it does tend to shine is its ADS speed. It's really even with the kilo after the update. If you went with the 30-round mag, which like I said isn't practical in Warzone, it'll actually be even much faster. Sprint to fire speed's faster because you can go with stippled grip versus the other attachments are taken up by a barrel. You can kind of swap that out. Sprint to fire speed's better. Movement speed is actually faster than the kilo and the Bruin. It's faster than both. Slightly, but it is. ADS movement speed, it's actually better than the Bruin, but not quite as good as the kilo. And as we go down here to hipfire area, it actually has the tightest hipfire spread, even tighter than the kilo. In case you guys didn't know, there's a hidden stat. When you put on a longer barrel, it actually widens out your hipfire. And since you can't put on a barrel, it benefits from that. But where it really struggles is this part right here with the bullet velocity. 828 meters per second compared to 1300 of the kilo or 1100 of the Bruin. So this is where those bullets are really going to struggle, and it's going to be even harder for you to hit shots because of that delay. So that TTK is even going to get worse. Because the higher this number is, the closer it's going to feel to hit scan, which this is the opposite of that. And that brings us to here, where we end up with the class setup. This is the best Holger class setup, I think, for Warzone. Does that mean it's a good class setup? No, I think at the end of the day, you're going to get outgunned by a lot of weapons. If you're looking to just put yourself at a disadvantage, or maybe you got to complete some challenges, which you can only do in Warzone, definitely try this class setup out. It's going to be the Merc foregrip, the monolithic suppressor, the VLK, tack laser, stipple grip tape, and that's about as good as it gets. Obviously, you can swap an attachment here or there. Doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to get outgunned using this weapon, versus I'm pretty sure if I look over YouTube, people are going to say it's overpowered, broken, and then make a video about it and never use it again. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, just make sure you subscribe with notifications on. Reminder, my Gfuel code is still discounted to 30% all the way until August 14th. And I want to thank you guys all for coming through the Twitch streams. We actually were able to get partnered. So I am now partnered on Twitch. So my streams will have that little bit of a check mark. If you want to go ahead and show support, check out the streams. That again is all linked down in the description. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.